I kid you not, like on like weeknights, like people would come out, like come in like their shirts and ties from work and like just like release their inner scene kid for an hour to like sing along to the songs and then like go back to their kids at home and like
What's going on, buddy? We're back. It's Tour Stories.
Beautiful 80s rock vocals right there.
Thank you very much. I put the leather pants on for today's episode, feeling good.
You need to open some sink-in songs like that. With leather pants, I mean, not your vocals.
Yeah, open leather pants.
Well, anyway.
Welcome back to another episode of Tour Stories. On the episode today, we have Nate from I Set My Friends on Fire and Losers Club. Nate has quite the resume when it comes to the touring world in two different fields, obviously in the music industry, but also in his new profession in NASCAR, which is the most insane story for a career path for a touring musician, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it's the logical move. You start touring around in a vehicle and then you tour with vehicles. So
he's I don't even know what the exact term is for his position with his NASCAR team, but it is so cool. And his life on social media is quite the spectacle. But before we get started, I do want to address the elephant in the room. If you've been listening to this podcast now for several weeks, you've noticed that Cabretti and I are wearing the same exact clothes for every intro for like the past month.
Yeah,
I promise we don't wear these clothes every day.
I do.
Cabretti may. The reality is we're recording all these intros at the same time. Sorry in advance. I just wanted to be clear that I have worn other outfits other than this shirt. This isn't just, us living in the van wearing the same thing every day on tour, I promise.
Although we do miss that.
I do miss that. I could wear this shirt for several days in a row on tour, but, it's all good. Cabretti, before we get started, where can they find us?
All right. So if you haven't already followed us on Instagram, it's at Tour Stories Pod. And be sure to follow the band at Sinkin Band wherever you follow people.
I love saying that. Cabretti, where can they find us?
Everywhere.
Don't forget to hit subscribe wherever you listen to the podcast. For more, let's share this around and grow this podcast as much as we possibly can. Let's get to this episode with Nate from I Set My Friends on Fire and Losers Club and NASCAR. All right, on the podcast today, this man has been all over the place in this tiny little band called I Set My Friends on Fire. Just flashback to high school right there. He's also the front man in a new band called Losers Club. He is also a touring pioneer in this mega band called NASCAR Incorporated.
Yep. Great.
Nate, what's going on, buddy? How you doing?
what's up, man? Good to see you again. I haven't seen you since like 2019 at the Chameleon Club. Rest in peace.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, Chameleon Club, man.
Great to see you guys, and thanks for having me.
Of course. Cabretti, is somebody buying Chameleon Club, or is it done for good?
I have no idea. I hope somebody's buying it because it would be great.
Yeah, I'll buy it.
There were some rumors that they were going to try and move it, but like the whole point of Chameleon Club is that like it's right there on Prince Street. Like it's an iconic place itself, the building, you know?
Dude, my favorite thing about Chameleon Club is the burrito place across the street.
Robberitos in Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
The best burritos ever, dude. And they had the best selection of sauces and like man, once we would literally drive overnight just so I could be there when it opened.
So you may not have known this, but you just stirred up an argument already for any Pennsylvania listeners, because Central Pennsylvanians argue over two places. We argue over Sheetz versus Wawa, and then they argue over Robberitos versus Nito Burrito.
Okay. All right. So
this
I'm
is
definitely going with Sheetz over Wawa though. Sheetz over Wawa for sure.
Of course.
Like,
That's not even a contest. I'll fight people who claim Wawa.
Dude, Sheetz is just another level, bro. Like Wawa's Wawa's like the Office Depot version of Sheets. Like it's not even in the same league.
Wawa just went and just bought all the leftover food from Sheets and threw it in the microwave and called it a day.
Pretty much.
All right. So first off, I want to go back to the early touring days for you. I don't know any of your history pre I Set My Friends on Fire and how you got there. Because I know you joined the band well into their careers. I want to know that story. What were you doing in music pre that band, and then what happened when you joined?
So I guess starting from square one, I was originally in a band called Dividing the Skyline from Rochester, New York. We were managed by a company that was also associated with Drive Through Records, but that started taking off when I was about 16. But it came to a point where half the band wanted to go to college and half the band wanted to stay home and chase it. So that band wound up breaking up, and I went off and joined a band called The Stellar Life that was the last band ever signed to Drive Through Records. And that lasted a little bit. And from there, in 2014, I joined a band called The Bunny the Bear from Buffalo that was signed with Victory. Worst years of my life. It was awful, but through that I met Matt from I Set My Friends on Fire, and things were going so awful with the Bunny the Bear. Matt from I Set was like, "Hey, I want to go on tour again. I want to start doing this again, but I don't have a van, I don't have a trailer, and I don't have a band." And I was like, "Well, everybody in the Bunny the Bear wants to quit. I own the van, I own the trailer. Like, why don't we just combine?" So there was a huge blow up while the Bunny the Bear was on Warped Tour in 2015. Like a huge blow up where like we literally like had to go to Kevin and be like, "Yo, we don't want our names dragged through the mud, but like 4 of us are quitting and like we're going home. We're dropping off the tour." So we literally dropped off Warped Tour and then went and joined joined I Set My Friends on Fire. So it was a very weird situation, but it worked out, and we had a good run at it. You know, it was cool to play those songs. Like I'm still a pretty decently young guy, I guess. I mean, I'm 25, so I mean, Things That Rhyme with Orange is like my ringtone when I was in 8th grade. I had a Virgin Mobile Oyster.
Oh man.
That was my first phone ever. But Things That Rhyme with Orange was my ringtone, so it was super cool to get a chance to do that. And you know, I know that it was kind of past the heyday, but like over in Europe and Australia, like stuff was still pretty going pretty well there. It was just it was a good run, man. It was a good run, and I had a really fun time with it for sure.
So I want to go back real quick to the Bunny the Bear era because you guys were on Victory, and beyond the personal issues with the band, I want to know at that time, Victory was a very volatile place. There's a lot of successful bands, and then there was a lot of bands that considered that label to be directly from Satan himself.
So
go ahead. What was your experience working with them?
That's something that gets brought up a lot. Is everybody's all like, "Yo, like Tony must have been terrible and shit." Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like, Tony was probably the best label owner that I personally ever been a part of. And the thing was, if we were always honest with him, and we knew what we signed up front. So like that's what I think a lot of like. Here's the thing about Tony: is you're fair with Tony, he'll be fair with you. But if you try to fuck Tony, he will fuck you over 8 times as hard as how you try to fuck him. So it's kind of like your actions kind of set the precedence with him. So there was a lot of situations where like people would like, for example, I don't want to throw them under the bus, but A Day to Remember, like they didn't know that they were going to become the biggest metalcore band in the US and become an arena band. So like they signed their first version of their contract, which wasn't a very fair contract, but they signed it. And they blew up and realized that they were getting screwed. But the thing is, they signed that contract in the first place. So it's kind of like, hey, like you set yourself up for this, you know? And I found that was the situation with a lot of bands. But like they put up with so much crap from us, man. Like there is a point that we owe them $144,000, and they continue.
Oh my God!
And they continue to print us merch. They were just like I said, everybody at that label was awesome. Tony was always great to us, and like, don't get me wrong, I've seen Tony do some screwed up stuff. Like, he tried to fight somebody's like a fan's dad at the Chicago show, but like he was always very fair to us. Just as long as we were honest and as long as we weren't trying to hide anything, he was always cool with us. So
that's so interesting to hear. I mean, we've heard that from other artists too. It seems like whenever you talk with an artist that was on Victory, that's not on the forefront of tearing them down, everybody had exceptionally positive things to say about them. So it's really weird now just to think of that dynamic and like how could the opinions end up being so skewed over the same people?
Well, it's like it's hard. Like, it's hard to see your money be taken away. It's hard to be on the other side of the money. So it's like these bands will go in and like they were really good with advances. Like, I want to say they gave us like $30,000 for the last record and then $20,000 tour support. So the budget for that record was like after marketing, it was like an $80,000 record, which is awesome. But
that's insane even for that time. That's really solid.
That was 2014. But the thing is like when you see it from that side, you're like, okay, somebody's investing $80,000 in your band. But if that album went and blew up, I would go and see a royalty statement that said, okay, we generated $2 million, but we're getting paid out $200,000. And when people see those numbers, they're like, where is it going? Not realizing that all the money that came from up front, like all that money comes from someplace. Those merch bills that aren't paid, those like the van, the trailer expenses, like all of that money has to come from somewhere. You know, and as bands get bigger, they need bigger promotion. Like when we had a commercial on Fuse TV for a while, and like we knew that was a super high expense. Like it probably wasn't a 6-figure expense, but that was probably a $50,000 marketing expense. But you know, when you see those things, like it's like somebody paid for that. So although like down the road you might see a super high number and it looks like somebody's taking a super high number from you, it's like, A, that's what you signed up for, but B, it's an investment for a reason. Like it's like essentially buying equity of your own company, which like when you learn in the long run, it's kind of a like in the real business world, that shit happens all the time where a company will go and buy 50% of your equity for $1 million. That company turns into a $700 million company, and right, you're giving away half of your revenue a year because of it, you know?
Right. Man, Nate's out of the gate just spitting some business facts at you right now. I like this.
That's how it goes, man. Like, I mean, the thing is I feel like not enough people run their bands like a business, and at the end of the day it is. So it like I said, Victory was great to us. I think a lot of people had bad experiences because they were young kids that didn't understand business. But at the end of the day, like the only thing that I have bad to say about Tony is that like he tried to fight a fan's dad at the bottom lounge. But besides that, he was all good. But it was a good experience for sure.
So you were talking about your career leading up to the Bunny the Bear, and I want to know. So the Rochester area, just the New York scene in general, I'm really not too familiar with. You know, what was it like growing up? Where were you playing? Was it a disaster zone like it was at some of the venues where we're from? What was that whole scene like?
It was cool, man. But I started touring really young. Like, um, I grew up in like a really nice suburb of Rochester, and I didn't really understand the when you're young and you're in bands, like you don't understand that not everybody comes from a great family. Not everybody has the parent support. Like not everybody got a Gibson Les Paul for their birthday and shit like that. So it's like, I feel like I kind of got off on the wrong foot with a lot of people when I first started playing music, just because I was like, wait, what do you mean? Like your parents don't come to your shows? Or like, what do you mean? Like you guys are paying for your own recordings and stuff like that, you know? So, um, that was kind of a tough lesson to learn. So um, I didn't really have I think the other misconception was, I think a lot of people thought that I was older than I was. That's been like a huge problem my entire life. People have always thought that I was like 40, but I'm not, which is weird because I look like I'm 12. But
wait, before you go any farther, Capretti and I had this conversation beforehand where I pulled you up and I'm like, I know Nate looks really young, but I thought he was like 30, mid 30s, maybe pushing it for a second. But then I was like, wait a minute. No, I know he mentioned it. I was like, wait, he's younger than me. I think it's just when you get surrounded with like what's it considered? Like a legacy band, so to speak.
yeah,
You all of a sudden are 10 years older than you actually are.
yeah, like people always thought that I was older than I was, but I mean, I think that when I was local, when I was doing like the local stuff, like I think that I just really got on the wrong foot and just pissed off a lot of people just because I didn't really know how life worked, and I was honestly pretty sheltered kind of in a way growing up. But um, you know, it hit real fast because what it turned out to is like, okay, we can't play shows locally because people don't fuck with us, so we're going to go out on tour. So it's like people didn't even really know that my first band, Dividing the Skyline, was from Rochester. It's like we
Yeah.
went out and did a small run with Jack's Mannequin, and I remember on that tour people were like, wait, like this band's from Rochester, I've never heard of them. So but by the time I came back, like I started getting much more involved in the scene and kind of patching up the stupid shit that I had said when I was a kid. And I really appreciate the Rochester scene now. There's some really good bands out of there, like Sirens and Sailors was from there. Trying to think of who else. I I should know this more off the top of my head, but there's also a lot of like one-off members in bands, like the guitarist of Hit the Lights is from Rochester.
It's like it's the drafting area for big bands.
Yeah, it really is. Like the drummer of Mastodon's from Rochester. It's just a weird location, but we're really thankful to have the music scene that we have. I wish I hadn't taken as much for granted as I did when I was younger, because we had some really cool venues, and there was a time where like there was a venue that when I was in middle school that would have 6 tour packages come through a week, and it's like now I can only imagine like what it would have been like if like we had that privilege now to go and see all those bands. There's so many bands that like I missed out on seeing. Like I'll find old flyers for like Suicide Silence playing at 200 cap room, or Bringing the Horizons first US tour that they didn't even headline, Kitty headlined. But it's like, yo, like I had a friend to hit me up to go to that show, and I was like, no, like not tonight, it's a school night. And now it's like, man, I would have killed to see that, you know?
Right.
So I wish that I had some of those privileges back for sure.
So you said about how you felt like you were sheltered before you went touring. So do you have any specific stories on like things that happened on tour that kind of broke you out of that?
Yeah, man, for sure. I mean, seeing the grind, and when I turned, like I actually posted about this today, when I was finishing up high school, you know, my parents were kind of like, look, hey, they're just going to write checks and I'm just going to go and do whatever I want and never pay them back. It was like, they were essentially my bank loan, but at the same time, like if my expenses weren't in, we weren't leaving for tour. If I needed a loan on something else, they always would make me like build a business plan and stuff like that. So, but learning to manage my own money under like the fact of like, you know, the first tour that we did, like we would get offers to stay with people and I'd be like, yeah, sure. Like, that's awesome. And we go and stay with them and like, they'd have incredibly dirty houses and like no air conditioning and stuff like that. So like things like that just started kind of waking me up under the fact of realizing that, you know, I realized that people will extend. I realize there's a lot of great people in the world that although they don't have much, they'll extend a lot out to you. And I really appreciated that. It made me appreciate my parents that much more for all that they did, but it also made me really appreciate what people were doing. You know, like there was times that like looking back that like, you know, a 22-year-old would have us stay at their house and spend his last $20 on us, like ordering burgers for us, you know? And it's like not realizing that like, that was the last $20 in that person's pocket, you know? So I think that there was multiple instances that like definitely woke me up, especially like when I joined the Bunny the Bear. It's like, you know, like that, like as much as people want to hate on that band, there's plenty of reasons to hate on that band, believe me. But like they really came from like shit, bro. Like literally that band was started because the two singers were smoking crack in an abandoned house in the basement. And we're like, yo, it would be funny if we like wore masks and started a stream. Dude, I know that's crazy, but like I think between the ages of like 18 and 19, like I would go up to Buffalo every weekend and these people just had my rest of my band members were just like living super trap. And it was like I would go back home to like my parents' super nice house, but it was like it was definitely kind of weird, but like it taught me a lot of just about like the fact that there are good people out there. Like I said, like the spending the last $20 you have on making sure that we were fed, or you know, running the air conditioning that night, even though they didn't have the money to. Like there's people that did that for us. Like like I said, music definitely opened me up to the real world for sure. So.
Did you guys ever stay with an organization called RIFO?
Called RIFO.
RYFO.
Were they out
before
RIFO?
It literally stood for Rock Your Face Off, which is hilarious.
No,
but,
I don't think
so it was this church funded organization where what they did was they families would volunteer to put themselves on this giant map on this website where you could sign up to be a RIFO band and you had access to all these contacts for places to stay. Which there's been websites like that before, but RIFO was wild because people really made that kind of their like outreach mission.
Yeah.
And they like RIFO was their thing. A lot of times it was like empty nesters who had a big family. Everybody's out and they've got all this space, and what do they do with it? And they happen to be the parents that went to shows because that's what their kids did. So you would show up at a RIFO home and there would literally be these like enormous bunk rooms with like, they ran plumbing to have their own showers and fridges, and like food was prepped. You'd show up at 3 a.m. and there was a gourmet dinner ready for you, plates out, everything. Literally like, hey, the dogs are downstairs for you because we know you want to hang out with a friendly fluffy pet. Like they went all out. It was amazing. Like it was such a taste of home for a moment when you're out there. And I mean, we started calling these families like RIFO moms and RIFO dads. Like they were crazy. Yeah, it was the family away from home, and they're still kind of around, but it's not the way it was.
Yeah,
but
that's kind of how my parents were. Like after like adjusting to it, it's like when I was on tour, they'd have bands staying at the house. You know, like they definitely they had this mindset of like, if people are putting up my kid, like the least that I can do is put them up.
Right.
And like we've had hundreds and hundreds of bands stay at the house over years, and it's like there's been some bad situations where I'll give them a shout out right now, but the Relapse Symphony thought it'd be awesome to shove beer cans down my toilet and actually broke the plumbing pipes. And it was like a super expensive fix. Yeah, dude. Yeah, like fuck that band. And they also like broke up on my lawn. It was super weird, but
we stayed at a rifle home one time where somebody was stabbed.
Yeah.
Like
what?
So there were two bands staying there. It was us and this other band. And at some point when we were gone, we were staying at the house like 2 nights in a row. I think the timeline here is correct. Correct me if I'm wrong, Cabretti, but we stayed there like one night. We were playing in the city the next night, and then we were going to stay over and then drive. And at some point after the first night, when we left to actually go to the venue, there was a heated argument with this band, the other band that was staying at this rifle home, which they were already kind of, they were just strange people. They were just like, they were committed to making sure that they smoked as much weed as possible in this poor old like 70-year-old lady's house, which it was just a lot. She was already feeling really weird about them. But one of them stabbed another in an argument in this literally like a 68-year-old lady's home.
And it wasn't the Bunny the Bear?
No, it was not. I don't remember the name of this band, but it was not that.
The name of the band, I remember it meant like Seed of the Earth or something like that. It was
this in Boston or no?
It was
this was
right, like Virginia.
You cut off. Say it again, Cabretti.
Oh, it was like Virginia, somewhere around DC.
Yeah, it was literally the band were like, this stands for the sound of Earth. It was like a weird name that stood for. It was wild, man. But so we're at the venue, and this poor old lady is texting us, telling us what's happening, and like literally saying this is in like, I need help. Like this is like, I don't know what to do. They haven't left the house. Like there's been a stabbing. Everybody's now kind of like recovering, and they're still in the home. And she's like, I don't know what to do. Can you help? So did we leave? So we like left our gear and went there, right?
I have to fix your timeline a little because that band was actually staying there and kind of abusing the system for like a week.
Oh, that's right. So they just never left.
Right. By the time they were still there, we ended up at the RIFO coordinator's house in Texas. And he got a phone call at 3 a.m. when we were sitting there that this stabbing had occurred. And he's like, what do I do? This is like the first time we've ever had a stabbing. Like,
bro, that's crazy. Man.
Oh, man.
That's crazy.
Sound of the Earth, man. Sound of the Earth, salt of the. There you go.
Not the Sound of the Earth, man.
The Sound of the Earth is a sharp blade.
All right. So I want to know now, once you got into I Set My Friends on Fire, what was it like touring in that band? What's it like in this new range of, like, we're playing these classics that everybody knows, and like everybody's here for those same exact moments to relive this again. Like what's the dynamic like touring in a band like that?
It was cool, man, because like I had a lot of control because I managed the band as well. So like I brought my friends along with me and like people who I'd grown up playing music with and stuff. So that was always cool.
You didn't set them on fire, right?
No, never. But wow. It was cool, but it was very apparent to me like very early that it wasn't sustainable. Like it was awesome, but it was like we'd go and play a town once and everybody would come out and it would be crazy. But the next time we rolled through that town, people would be like, all right, I've already seen Things That Rhyme with Orange and Sex Ed live. Like, I'm not going back. I'm not spending another $50 to see them. So we kind of knew that it was unsustainable off the bat, but it was still a really cool experience. And it was cool to meet people that like those songs meant a lot to, and it was also kind of funny to see like how much like people had grown up, because it's like, I kid you not, like on like weeknights, like people would come in like their shirts and ties from work, and like just like release their inner scene kid for an hour to like sing along to the songs, and then like go back to their kids at home. But it's like we saw that every night. It was funny, but it was cool to see that. Like, I think the coolest part about it was to see that people weren't forgetting that it was part of who they were at one point, although it wasn't part of who they are now. Like those songs help make them who they were. Or one of the things that we realize a lot is like people who these songs came out at like the worst time of their lives, and then we saw them get their shit together and grow up. And like these people who used to be like, I had no idea what I was doing in high school, man. Like I just used to listen to things that rhyme with orange on repeat, and question where I was gonna go and shit like that. And now to see like, yeah, man, like I'm a financial advisor in New York City and shit. So like
yeah, that's awesome.
Cool. It was always cool to see those stories. It was like, it was really a lot of people that like grew up with the band, but it was also cool to see like younger kids get into it, of like 14, 15-year-olds, like finding the nostalgia of like, yo, this is cool, like this rips, but it's like, yo, like this album's older than you are, you know?
Right.
But it was always cool to like, because like I feel like I was kind of one of those kids. Like when I was in middle school, I was listening to bands like Under Oath, Census Fail, H2O, The Movie Life, like bands that had broken up. But it was like I was kind of hanging on to like, I just missed the train on it, but like it's still, I understood what it was, you know. I understood like the era that it was, and I think that was kind of cool to see in kids in the same way.
I want to ask, because you kind of are a guitarist, singer, and band manager, really with like all of your music. It seems, definitely with Losers Club. You just said with I Set My Friends on Fire. What I want to know is, I think that the band member and manager combination is the hardest thing to pull off, because you have to play the bad guy. And it's so much easier to throw that on a manager that's not hanging out in the van with everybody else on tour on any given night. You have to play the bad guy, and then you also have to jump on stage and have the connection with your bandmates, and then also jump in a van and travel for 6 hours that night.
I remember like we related on this. Like, we don't have to go up, but like I told you what happened the night that we played together.
Yeah.
Like, and it's like, yo, everybody else is vibing, but like we're the ones in charge, so we have to go and fucking babysit for everybody else. I have to go make sure our drummer's not going and ripping off your drummer's face and stuff like that. Like, and you're doing the same thing, vice versa. So like, there was a lot of situations where like it sucked, because I would be like, you're an awesome person, you're just shitty to tour with, or like you did this, and like we just, it jeopardizes the brand and everything around it. Like, we can't keep you around. Or
we could literally hang out everywhere except for on tour.
100%, man, 100%. And like, I definitely lost a lot of friendships over it. I think that I gave a lot to the bands that I was in, and I don't think that some of the members really fully appreciate what was done. Like, some of them definitely do, but other ones really don't. Under like, people be like, well, why are you getting paid more than I am? It's like, all right, well, I own the van, I own the trailer, I own all the gear. Like, it's sat in my driveway. I pay the merch bills. Like, where do you think, like, if you're not handling the money, and especially when you're making what is a lot, which we were never making a lot, but looked like from the outside, like people don't understand that getting $1,000 a night isn't a lot of money. Like,
No.
like when in retrospect, people are like, oh, well, if you're making $1,000, then every member should be getting 200. It's like, all right, but then the merch comes in, then the van trailer comes in, then the plane tickets that you took to get here comes in, then the hotels come in,
Then the van breakdown comes in.
the vans, which happened so many times, no matter how new of a van we had,
Right.
and people would be like, well, like, well, why aren't we getting paid the same? It's like, dude, all right, like I'll pay you what I'm getting paid, but you're gonna come home with less money than you're getting paid because of all the shit that comes out of it, you know?
Right.
Like I think like I said, I posted about this earlier today. Like I didn't break even with my dad on loans that we took out until literally today. Like literally this morning, I paid him off every last dollar that I spent through the band. But there was a time that like we owed him $60,000, you know, like from plane tickets and visas and all of that. And people who weren't involved in it didn't really understand the expenses, but it's just so easy to swipe a credit card without like processing how much is actually like adding up. So, you know, like I said, I definitely relate on the fact that like I lost a lot of friendships. I definitely had to be like I never partied. I could never just like hang out. I was always doing business stuff. And like I think that a lot of times people would be like, oh, like, yo, like Nate's the giant dick of the band. Like he won't come and hang out. But it's like, I can't, like, because if everybody else is going to be trashed, somebody's got to drive in the morning. Like, you know,
Right.
like it was kind of like, but it forced me to grow up at the same time, like, which I think is really good. Like, it was kind of like, hey, if nobody else is going to stay organized or nobody else is going to do it, somebody has to do it, you know? So,
Right.
Like I said, I hated it, but I also wouldn't change it, if that makes sense. So, overall, it's just one of those things, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Dude, this is great so far, man. Like these are the most facts shared on this podcast so far. The honesty, man. This is great. Look, this is the perspective that like this is one of the reasons why we started this podcast. Is I want somebody, you know, I hope that somebody out there listening to this right now is in a band at 18 and trying to get their feet wet in touring. And like, look, if you're able to at least go in, you're still going to make the same mistakes. But if you can at least go in knowing a little bit of the perspective of somebody like you is sharing, when those mistakes happen, you can kind of like close the synapses and be like, okay, I understand this now. This is how I can adapt and move from here.
For sure. And it's like, I look at like, look, I didn't make any money playing music.
Yet you're still young.
Yeah. I didn't make any money playing music. You know, it caused a lot of issues in my life, but at the same time, like I still wouldn't change it. Like if you love something, you love something. And like, I wouldn't have the job that I have now without touring. I wouldn't have gotten into the college that I got into without touring. I wouldn't know how to take care of myself. Like I learned more from touring than I did anywhere else, you know, because it's literally like survival mode. Like there's not somebody holding your hand through it. You literally have to do it yourself to make the next step. Like,
right.
There's nobody, and every tour is different. Like there's no guide for it. So, you know, like there's definitely times that it fucking sucked. And like, I look back and there's a lot of times that I was like, I want to go home, but like, I wouldn't change anything. Like everything worked out, not the way that I thought it was going to, but everything definitely worked out and it paid off in other places. Like I definitely have zero regrets. Like there definitely came a time that I was like, look, I can't do this full time anymore. I got to go and get a job. I got to go back to school. I got to move forward with my life. But the thing is, I think that everybody fears that moment, but there's really a way that you can make it coexist. Like you don't have to give up everything in order to have those things. Like it's real. Like I remember I always was so terrified of going back to college or so terrified of getting a job that I couldn't leave. But it's like, dude, if you love something enough, you'll find a way to do it. It's just like the best advice that I was ever given was music isn't everything. music is a lot to me, but music is not everything. And if you live like music's everything, you're going to be fucked when you lose that, because there's going to come a day that if you're too dependent on it, it's just like, dude, it's just like relationships. Like if you depend too much on your significant other, there's going to come a day that they're like, fuck it, I'm out. You know?
Right.
So like it's kind of like the same thing. So you just got to move forward with other aspects of life and not think that music is everything, but still have a love for it. And just, like I said, like it didn't work out how I thought it was going to, but it worked out. Every bucket list item that I have has been checked, you know? So that's more than a lot of people can say. So
yeah,
definitely no regrets for sure.
So before we wrap this up, I got to ask about the newest touring adventure that you've taken on, which is you are on the road, man, with NASCAR. What? How did this happen?
Dude, it's a joke, honestly. It's a joke how it happened, but it like I said, I absolutely love it every day. I can't believe that this is my job, but you know, it happened because actually a driver was a fan of I Set My Friends on Fire. So Alex Bowman was a fan of I Set My Friends on Fire, and he hit me up and was like, yo, this is gonna sound crazy, but like, do you want to come to a race? I'll get you guys tickets if you get me into Warped Tour. And I was like, this is super random. Like I remember where I was staying in Chicago. We were on tour, and I remember like looking at my phone and being like, a NASCAR driver is messaging me to ask if I want to go to a race, but they need to get into Warped Tour. Like, all right, this is super weird. But anyway, I was a race fan when I was a kid, and I went. And and it was a weird dynamic, but it was cool. I thought that it was super cool. I went with the rest of the band, and while we were there, another driver approached us that was like, yo, like, I love your band. I listened to you guys all the time when I was a kid. So
That's wild.
We actually kind of lost contact with Alex because that was around the like time that Alex Bowman was taking over for Dale Earnhardt Jr. and he became a big deal overnight. But anyway, like I became really good friends with Landon Castle, who was the other driver that came over. And he's like, hey man, like a year later, he's like, hey, you should bring your family out to the race. Like, I was like, that's random, but okay. So I brought my family out to Dover. And my dad, like jokingly on the way up there, I was like, Dad, like you should, my dad's a business owner, by the way. So I was like, you should see what you can do to get Pop-A-Lock on the car, like to sponsor him. As a joke, my dad's like, Nate, there's no way that like we're doing that. Like, this is dumb. So anyway, brought my dad to meet Landon. 20 minutes into his conversation with Landon, my dad goes like, so how much does it cost to like sponsor one of these?
No way.
And, like, I was like, dude, are you kidding me? Like, I thought that was a joke. And so my dad just fell in love with Landon, thought that he was an awesome dude. And they brought a sponsorship to his company and a sponsorship proposal, and it got rejected the first time. But the second time they voted on it again, and it wound up going through. And so my dad sponsored Landon's car in 2019. And just from there, like I just started befriending a few drivers just that I met through that. And a bunch of people that were in the industry, and kind of is like I don't want to say if my music career is faded out, but as my music career was as Ismfoff was done touring full time, and like I knew that I had to do something else, I started to kind of explore like opportunities in NASCAR and racing and moving down to North Carolina. And I wasn't really sure what I was going to land on, but I was teaching at the time. I know that that's a totally different story, but I was actually a middle school teacher in between it and NASCAR.
I wasn't lying when I said this man has the most ridiculous resume, because there's elementary school teacher in there, there's hockey coach in there. I know that too. Like it's everywhere, man.
It's all across the board. But I was teaching, and I just like I liked it, but I was bored, and like I was like, I got to do something different. So like, I reached out to Joe Graff on Instagram. Never met him in my entire life. Just like a cold email, cold Instagram thing that was like, hey man, how's it going? I was curious, like like what's your management situation? Like I would love to get involved with NASCAR. And
That's the blind booking
dude,
email format right there. That's
yeah,
what that is.
line, bro. And like he hit me back and was like, yeah, dude, like sounds cool. Like sorry to hear the teaching isn't working out. But yeah, like I would love to get on a call with you. So I got on a call with him, and I actually on the call I pitched the drummer of Ismfoff to do video for him. And halfway through the call, he's like, "Yo, I gotta get you on a call with my dad." And his dad was starting up a management agency, and it was literally just like after 20 minutes of talking to his dad, he's like, "Well, you want to come work for us?" And I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Like, yeah, like I'd love to. So it was kind of a shot in the dark, but I realized that a lot of this chase was very similar to music. Like booking shows is like chasing sponsors. Like you like pretty much NASCAR is like music, but like you actually get paid for it. Like
So there's a real budget involved.
yeah, dude, like you're talking about like $50,000 sponsorships per race instead of like $150 per show, you know. So
there's enough mechanics around you to fix the broken down van when it stops on the way to your next tour date.
yeah, dude, yo, we don't even do vans, bro. We do flights, and it's like perfect. Like pretty much all the luxuries that like you think come with touring, but like don't come with touring, come with NASCAR. Like hotels, catering, flights, like.
This guy's rolling around in like Faith Hill's old tour bus right now. It's pretty great.
Yeah, bro. Actually, we're not there right now, but we'll be back there this weekend. But like super random, but like it was just a really, really good situation. And luckily, like I literally kind of moved in with Joe before I'd ever met him. And we like luckily like by entirely by chance, we just were super compatible. Like he's my best friend, and stuff was going super well for him. So we started to bring on some other drivers, and now I'm like up to my neck in work, but I love it and I wouldn't have it any other way. It's super random. People find it super funny that they're like all the time. They're like, I saw a tweet yesterday that was like, yo, hang on, let me see if I can find it. Hang on, give me 2 seconds.
I do have a quick question for you too.
Yeah, what's up, man?
So if Sinkin wants to sponsor a car, can we give you all of our unused drink tickets? Is that enough?
If you can throw me like
Exposure?
you could throw me like 4 Newports in that, and like maybe like a Little Caesar's pizza, we might be able to work.
All right.
It's good for the exposure, man. It's good. Race for the exposure. That's what matters. That's what you should be here for.
Here it is. So the tweet is, yo, what? Why did nobody tell me that the guitarist of I Set My Friends on Fire is also the manager of NASCAR Xfinity driver Joe Graff Jr.? 2 things I love colliding: cars wrecking and shitty bass music. But you know, it's like it's funny that it comes up, and like I know a lot of people are like, yo, like are you like seriously involved with this? But like it's my life now. I'm making a great living doing it. I love my job every day, and it's definitely a little weird. It's definitely hard to balance with music. Like I said, I'm still doing the Losers Club stuff, but
which is sick, by the way. Like I don't want that to go unnoticed. Like the music you're working on and putting out right now is so great. Make sure you plug that first before we bail from this, because that's important, man.
I appreciate it, but it's cool that like I said, like I still get to play music. I got something else that I can focus on. I'm not broke anymore, which is great. Like everything came full circle, man. And you know, like I actually met you at like a really tough time in my life. Like I had no idea what the fuck I was doing. Like we were still talking, Losers Club was still talking to labels, and I still thought that was going to be my life. And like, it kind of was like probably a couple months after that tour that I was like, yo, I just want to fucking play music and not worry about any of the BS. Like, not worry about what label I'm signing to, not worry about who's writing the music, not worried about merch bills, like any of that shit. Like, I want to just go out and play music with my friends and not worry about bills. And even if that meant like, okay, I can only do that 4 weeks a year, that 4 weeks a year is better than having to worry about all that stuff. So like the financial stuff from NASCAR definitely like kind of enabled that to become a possibility, to not worry about who was paying for the recordings and all that other shit. So it's like the first time that I've really played music for the sake of playing music. Like, so many people like lose that sight under like, there's so many years of my life that I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, I don't like what I'm recording. I don't like the music I'm writing. I don't like the people I'm with. Like, why am I doing this? And it's like,
Right.
finally, like all that stuff just kind of became clear, and it finally realized in the end that it just didn't matter. And it's just about loving music for the right reasons. And NASCAR was a way to do that. So I'm couldn't be more stoked where I'm at.
Drive fast and play hard. Dude, this has been awesome, man. Seriously, thank you so much for jumping on the podcast with us. I mean it when I say like this is the most insightful episode we had so far. I appreciate you being open and honest about everything and
course,
where
man.
your career has gone and where it's going to go from here, man. That's nuts. I love watching your journey from afar. Your social media is so much fun because you're just in a different place in a different environment every single day, surrounded by all these wild people. It's a lot of fun to watch, man. It really
I
is.
appreciate you a lot, man. Like I said, I hope that we can get you out to the Phoenix race and hang out for sure.
Been trying to bug my dad to come along with me for the
So
ride.
your dad's a huge race fan, right?
Yeah, he's just old. Just trying to get him out of the house.
Well, we'll get him hooked up. Don't worry.
Dude, plug everything real quick. Where can they find you personally? Where can they find Losers Club? All the good
Where
stuff.
can they find me personally? My Instagram is at Nate Ismfoff. It's all race cars and shit. No cool music stuff. Sorry about that. You can check out Losers Club on Spotify. There's like 4 Losers Clubs, but I look way different in the picture, but you might be able to put together that it's me. But yeah.
NASCAR's impacted his look.
Dude, no, Universal Studios fucked up my shit. Yeah, I mean, check out Losers Club, facebook.com/We Are the Losers Club. We're actually, wait, when is this getting posted?
Cabretti, when's this getting posted?
Probably 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Okay, so by the time you guys view this, you'll know that the announcement tomorrow. We actually signed with Substream Records, so we'll have a new single out probably by the time this airs, via Substream, and yeah, check it out. We're like a rap band now. No, we're not rap. But it's weird shit. It's like, I don't know. It's cool. It's cool. Check it out for sure.
Are you going to be getting any NASCAR placements with this new stuff?
Dude, we're working on it, man. Actually, I'm repping Avoid right now. They're actually on the NASCAR Heat soundtrack. So
that's the wildest, most brilliant branding from a band ever. They are nailing it right now.
Avoid is like I probably shouldn't say this, but Avoid just got some huge shit going their way. So
yeah,
go watch that dad rock and go fast and race hard. Yeah. Love, guys. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Tour Stories presented by Sink In. Cabretti, how did that episode go?
Oh, it was just a classic episode, just like all of our others.
What was so classic about it? What was your favorite thing that Nate said?
Man, I love when Nate talked about his touring experience. Just great.
Which touring experience?
All of them. They're all great.
All of them. We're recording this outro before we do the actual interview. I just wanted to see what Cabretti would say.
Oh, I'm well practiced for my post-interview videos.
I'm well practiced for post-interview videos.
Yep, and that's how I'm going to say it.
That's the description for this entire podcast for every streaming service. Thank you guys so much for listening to the interview that inevitably did happen at some point that you just listened to. Cabretti, where can they find us?
Find us at Tour Stories Pod or at Sink In Band, and be sure to subscribe and follow the podcast everywhere you get your podcasts.
Buy a t-shirt or something. We're kind of poor.
It's true.
Thank you for listening to the Tour Stories. We'll see you next time.